hall was already full long before the program was supposed to begin. People sat close to each other, their voices mixing into a soft, restless noise. Some were there because they loved music. Some came only because someone told them to. A few were there because they worked there and had no choice. It was one of those large halls that made people feel small the moment they walked in. High ceiling, heavy lights, rows and rows of chairs. And at the center of everything, a grand piano stood quietly, its black surface shining under the lights. To most people, the piano looked important, powerful, untouchable to her. It looked familiar. She stood near the side of the hall, holding her hands together to keep them from shaking. The red dress she wore was clean, but simple. It was not new. It had been worn many times before, carefully washed, carefully kept. She had chosen it because it felt right, not because it would impress anyone. She took a slow breath and looked at the piano. Again, memories came back without asking. Small rooms, cold mornings, long nights when sleep did not come easily. A piano that was never perfect, but always honest. She pushed the thoughts away. This was not the time to look back. This was the time to move forward, even if her legs felt heavy. She stepped closer. The manager noticed her almost by accident. He had been standing near the front, talking to someone about timing and arrangements. When he saw her walking toward the stage, he raised an eyebrow. His eyes moved quickly from her face to her dress, then to her hands. He did not recognize her. That alone told him everything he thought he needed to know. She stopped a short distance away from him and spoke politely. Her voice was calm but quiet. She said she would like to play. The manager laughed. It was not a loud laugh. It was the kind of laugh that came out without thinking. The kind that said, "This is not serious." He looked around as if expecting others to laugh with him. A few people nearby smiled awkwardly. Someone cleared their throat. The manager shook his head. He said something like, "If you play the piano, I'll quit." He meant it as a joke, a careless one. Words thrown into the air, without weight, without care. He did not see how her fingers tightened for a moment. He did not see how her shoulders stiffened and then relaxed again. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She did not tell him who she was or where she had been. She simply nodded. Once, the manager waved his hand, already losing interest. To him, this moment was small, forgettable, just another interruption in a long day. He turned slightly away, confident that nothing important was about to happen. Around them, people watched with mixed feelings. Some felt uncomfortable. Some felt curious. Some felt secondhand embarrassment, already imagining the mistakes she was about to make. A young man in the third row leaned toward his friend and whispered that this would not end well. An older woman near the aisle frowned, not at the girl, but at the manager. No one spoke loudly. Still, the air changed. She walked toward the piano. Every step felt louder than the last. The floor beneath her shoes seemed to echo her movement. She could feel eyes on her back, on her hair, on her dress. She kept her head level. She had learned long ago that looking down only made things harder. When she reached the piano bench, she stopped. For a moment, she just stood there. The hall slowly grew quiet. Not out of respect, but out of curiosity. People leaned forward slightly. Someone in the back stopped checking their phone. Even the manager turned back, arms crossed now, watching with a faint smile that said he was. Already sure of the ending, she sat down. The bench felt cold, solid, real. She placed her hands on her lap and closed. Her eyes for one brief second, not to pray, not to wish, just to breathe. Inside her chest, her heart beat fast, but steady. She opened her eyes and looked at the KEYSBLACK white. Simple, honest. Her. Fingers hovered above them. The silence stretched. A cough echoed. Somewhere far back, the manager shifted his weight and glanced at his watch. He looked bored. She could feel it all. The doubt. The pressure. The quiet judgment that filled the space between breaths. She had felt it before. Many times, in many places, she let her fingers fall. The first note filled the hall. It was soft, almost fragile, so light that some people wondered if they had imagined it. But it was there, clear and steady. Then came another, and another. Something changed. The sound was not rushed. It did not try to impress. It moved slowly, carefully, as if each note mattered, as if each one had a reason to exist. The manager's smile faded a little. People straightened in their seats. The music began to grow, not louder, but deeper. It felt like a story being told without words. A story of waiting, of patience, of pain that had been carried quietly for a long time. A man near the aisle swallowed hard without knowing why. A woman 2 rows back wiped her eyes and frowned. Confused by her own reaction, the manager uncrossed his arms. He leaned forward slightly, his head tilting without permission. Her hands moved with confidence now. Not flashy, not dramatic, just sure. Each movement smooth and controlled, as if she had been waiting for this moment longer than anyone could imagine. The piano responded to her touch, like it recognized her. The hall felt smaller now, closer, as if the walls themselves were listening. She did not look at the audience. She did not look at the manager. Her focus stayed on the keys, but her presence filled the space. It was clear that this was not a performance born from pride. It was something else, something earned. The manager felt a strange tightness in his chest. He did not understand it. He told himself it was nothing. Still, he did not look away. The music carried on, rising and falling like breath. Like life, it spoke of long roads and quiet nights, of doors closing and opening again when no one expected them to. Somewhere in the middle of the piece, a single tear rolled down a man's cheek. He did not notice it until it reached his jaw. No one laughed now. No, one whispered. The challenge that had been spoken so lightly moments before now hung in the air. Heavy and uncomfortable, the manager's joke echoed in his mind, and for the first time, he wished he had kept his mouth shut. Her fingers pressed the keys with gentle strength. There was no anger in the music. No need to prove anyone wrong. Only truth. The hall listened. Time seemed to slow as the last notes of this section began to form. Something inside the room shifted fully. The audience was no longer waiting for a mistake. They were waiting for what would come next, and so was the manager. He stood very still, eyes fixed on her hands, his confidence quietly slipping away. The music continued, and just before it could reach its turning point, just before the moment that would change everything, the sound softened again. The hall held its breath. So did he. The hall felt different now. It was not just quiet, it was connected. Every person in the room seemed tied to the same invisible thread pulled forward by the sound coming from the piano. The woman's hands moved gently, but with purpose. Note felt like it had a place to be, as if it had been waiting for the right moment to exist. The manager stood frozen near the front. He no longer checked his watch. He no longer smiled. His earlier words came back to him again and again, heavy and sharp. If you play the piano, I'll quit. At the time, it had felt harmless, funny even. Now, it felt small, careless, wrong. The music changed. It grew stronger, not louder, but fuller. It carried weight. It carried years that no one in the room had seen. Long days when no one clapped, long nights when giving up would have been easier. The sound filled the hall and pressed gently against every heart listening. A man in the back straightened his posture. A woman near the aisle pressed her hand to her chest. Someone whispered, "She's incredible," without meaning to. The manager swallowed. He began to notice things he had ignored before. The way her shoulders stayed relaxed. The way her hands never rushed, never hesitated. This was not luck. This was not practice from yesterday or last month. This was a lifetime. The music slowed again, becoming softer, almost fragile. It felt like standing at the edge of something important. Like the pause before a truth is spoken out loud. The woman's face remained calm, but inside emotions moved freely. She remembered rooms where no one listened, moments when people had walked away before she finished playing. Times she had questioned herself, not because she lacked skill, but because doubt had been placed in her path, again and again. She played through it all. The piano carried her forward. The final section began quietly, then slowly rose like the sun after a long night. It was not dramatic, it was honest. And that honesty reached places words never could. Tears fell openly now. No one felt embarrassed by them. When the last note finally sounded, it did not end suddenly. It lingered, stayed in the air, trembling softly until it faded into silence. No one moved. For a few seconds, the hall remained completely still. No clapping, no noise. Just breath being held by dozens of people at once. Then someone stood, then another. Applause broke out, not loud at first, but steady, strong. It grew quickly, filling the space with warmth. People rose to their feet, not because they felt they should, but because sitting no longer felt right. The woman stayed seated for a moment, her hands resting lightly on her lap. She looked at the keys one last time, then stood slowly. She turned to face the audience. Her eyes met the manager's. He did not look away. His face had changed. The confidence he once wore so icily was gone. In its place was something quieter, something closer to respect. The applause continued. When it finally softened, the manager stepped forward. The hall waited again. He took a breath, clearly unsure how to begin. Words had always come easily to him before. Now they did not. He spoke honestly. He admitted that he had laughed, that he had judged without knowing, that he had spoken without thinking. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed something else. Regret. He did not make excuses. He did not try to explain himself away. He simply said he was wrong. Then he did something unexpected. He turned to her and apologized, not loudly, not for attention, but clearly enough for everyone to hear. The hall remained silent, not tense, but thoughtful. She listened. She nodded once. She did not smile widely. She did not celebrate. She accepted the apology as it was offered, without pride, without bitterness. That simple moment meant more than any applause. The manager looked around the hall, then back at her. He did not quit that day, but something inside him changed. He knew it. Everyone could see it. The audience slowly began to leave, still talking. Quietly, still feeling the echo of the music inside them. Some wiped their eyes, some smiled softly. Many carried something new with them, something they could not fully name yet. The woman stepped away from the piano. A few people approached her, offering kind words. She thanked them politely. She did not stay long. She never liked crowds after performing. The music always took something out of her. Even when it gave so much to others, she walked toward the exit. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at the hall one last time. The lights were dimmer now. The piano stood alone again, quiet and patient. She felt peace, not because she had proven anyone wrong, but because she had stayed true to herself. Outside, the air felt cool. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Her hands no longer shook. Her heart felt light. She did not know what would come next. She did not need to. That night had given her something more important than promises or praise. It had given her confirmation that even when the world laughs, even when doors seem closed, what is real cannot be erased. Inside the hall, the manager remained for a moment after everyone else had gone. He looked at the piano differently now, not as an object, but as a voice. He remembered his words again. If you play the piano, I'll quit. He shook his head slightly. Not everything needs to be proven through loss. Sometimes learning is enough. The hall lights turned off one by one. The piano waited for the next story, and somewhere beyond the walls, a woman in a red dress walked forward, carrying her music with her, ready for whatever came next. Not because she was a legend, but because she never stopped believing in the quiet power of her own truth.